It was a very frustrating defeat for Boro at Hull on Saturday. They went there believing they could get something out of the game, in fact determined to get something out of the game, and it all went wrong. I thought that they approached the game in the right manner. They started off so well, really should have taken advantage of 5 minutes of incredibly intense pressure in the first few minutes, a couple of corners, ball flashing right through the goal mouth. If Boro had been able to take advantage of that, they would have really rocked Hull back, and it possibly might have gone on to gain in strength and win it quite comfortably. As it was, there was still a better side in the first half, without necessarily creating too many more good chances. Hull had a couple of good chances themselves. Giovanni trying to hit the corner flag with off-target headers. In the second half, it was Hull that responded better to managers' team talks. Phil Brown did a good job there, and they came out and I thought they treated the second half more as a cup tie, in the way that apparently they have done in a lot of their league games this season, to good effect. And they were the better side. The Tigers definitely controlled much of the second half. I thought that Degard and Arca were very good for Boro in the first half, but lost control in the middle of the park, really because of the way in which Hull were able to step up one or two gears. Even so, Boro defended quite well, and when Tuncay scored that clever goal in the 79th minute, finishing off a astute pass from Justin Hoyt, we had to assume that Boro were then quite capable of going on to win it. In fact, they should have gone on to win it. Personally, and it's purely a personal thing, I would have immediately taken off a striker and brought on an extra defender as a message to both sides of what was intended in the last 10 minutes. We didn't get that. In fact, I thought, as they do in the past, and it does get on my nerves on occasions, the way that Boro often go for a second goal immediately after they got the first one. They were caught out extending themselves, didn't defend very well, and within 60 seconds, Ross Turnbull was picking the ball out of the net. There was a bit of misfortune about the goal, in the way that the ball hit the right-hand post and then the back of Turnbull before ending up in the net. But I do think goalkeepers maybe shouldn't allow the ball to squeeze through what was effectively no more than a 7 or 8 inch gap in between himself and the near post. You do have to get down to them. You've got to stop that from happening. Unfortunately, Ross found himself picking the ball out the net against 5 minutes later, when Hull were awarded what was a very controversial penalty. I think there's certainly some doubts as to whether Giovanni should have been allowed to go on. I thought he was 3 yards offside. In fact, TV cameras virtually proved that fact when he went on to Mahill's long clearance. Should have been blown up for offside then, was allowed to go on, and of course it just needed the slightest contact from Wheater and he went over in the box. Penalty, virtually every referee in the league would have given it, and Boro ended up with egg on the faces, really, because they had the game won 11 minutes from time and proceeded to throw it away. I think one of the most worrying factors was again that Boro conceded late goals. They do have this sort of glass jaw, as people have pointed out, when they are put under pressure. That's 9 goals now conceded in the last 10 minutes of games this season, and I think I'm right in saying that Middlesbrough are leading the league in this respect. It doesn't make good reading, and it's something that Gareth Southgate's well aware of. You know, there have been discussions about it already this season, but it doesn't seem as though Boro are any better dealing with it. Didn't help, of course, that they were down to 10 men for the last few minutes, with Wheater sending off, which obviously was going to create pressure of its own. But even so, it is alarming in the way that Boro have cracked in this way, and especially when you look at the fact they've been ahead 5 times away from home and not been able to hold that lead. It doesn't make good reading. And while, you know, we're looking at a team that has strengths in certain areas, I think you could argue that the defence is arguably, on paper, the strongest department. So, especially with them having 4 top quality centre-backs, it's not working in the way it should, and it's something that definitely needs looking at, because it can't continue going on this way, especially as Boro having failed to get the necessary number of points from what you would regard as 3 reasonable fixtures over the last few weeks. 1 point out of 9 at terrible haul, and against Bolton, Newcastle and Hull. And now we're looking at a situation where we're wondering where the next win's coming from. Very frustrating, but there are things there that need sorting out quite quickly, very quickly in fact, because we don't want to be in a position at the end of the year where we looking over our shoulders rather anxiously. The sending off of Wheat has created problems of its own kind now, because he's got a 1-match ban and misses the match against Arsenal on Saturday. To make matters worse, Southgate had assumed that Huth and Riggett might both be available for Hull. Neither of them were ready in time, and now the manager is waiting to see how the 2 players develop this week. Can he put Huth in against Arsenal after not kicking a ball in competitive action against September because of injury? Or will Riggett be ready to return? He was last in action against Everton a few weeks ago. You would assume, in many respects, he would be the better bet because of his more recent match fitness. But then again, as Southgate's already said, he doesn't know if either player is going to be regarded as available and ready to put into Premier League action, especially in a match of the intensity against Arsenal. The other options, as Southgate says, come from within. He did bring on Seb Hines for only his 2nd league appearance in the closing minutes against Hull. Very well, highly rated young player is Hines, but at the same time, lack of experience. We're looking at a side already that has plenty of a lack of experience all over it, and they're going into a game against a team in the calibre of Arsenal. A lot of imponderables there, a lot of decisions to be made, and I know that Southgate will leave things until later in the week when he's had a chance to see how Huth and Riggett do in training, assuming that both are able to train fully with the rest of the squad. And then wait up against whether Hines is a better option. So we'll have to wait and see, but we are fortunate. We've got Emmanuel Pogatet's playing out of his skin at the moment. The Austrian is so influential as skipper. It's quite remarkable, and I mean, he's an adopted Teessider in every way. He plays with his heart on his sleeve, as every Teesside fan would want to see it done, and long may it continue.